So this is just a little presentation about my first novel, which is called Five Wounds. This was originally published a few years ago by Allen and Unwin. That edition has now gone out of print, and so I am self-publishing a revised, updated second edition, and you can find details of that edition at this URL. I'll come back to that in a moment. You'll see that there are two names on the cover of this book. The second name is Dan Hallett, and Dan was the illustrator. And as you'll see, his work for this novel fully deserves being named as a co-author. So this is the back of the cover of the revised second edition. So I'll just read you the text of this, which will give you a sense of what kind of a book it is. Bear with me a second. Surreal, darkly beautiful and unsettling, this richly illustrated novel is by turns hilarious and horrific, grotesque and tender. A cruel and arbitrary world where disturbing lapses in logic are commonplace. A city built on water. 5 people, isolated from those around them, but mysteriously connected to one another. Gabriella is a mutilated angel, haunted by her inability to interpret prophecies. Kerr is the rabid leader of a sect of dogs, desperate to escape his inheritance. Cuckoo is a gambler with a waxed face, determined to find a fixed identity before his luck runs out. Magpie is a thief in search of the perfect photographic subject, terrified of going blind. Crow is a leper trying to distill the essence of death as an antidote to dying. Everyone's connected, Gabriella said. You, me, Kerr, Crow, Magpie. She ticked the names off. 5 fingers, Cuckoo said, watching her hand. Gabriella picked up the theme. 5 wounds. 5 wild cards, returned Cuckoo. Or 5 marked cards. Someone's playing games with us. At the end of the game, who wins and who loses? Who escapes their fate and who fulfills it? And below there's just a short quotation from one of the reviews for the first edition. 5 Wounds is like Christmas for book nerds. It's like Christmas in July and regular Christmas combined. That's how good it is. And that was from Dave Drayton in Vibe Wire. So as you can tell from that summary, this is not a realist novel. It's a novel that's kind of told in the mode of a fable or a folk tale, really. But it also has an overarching conceit, and that conceit is that it is presented to you as if it's an artifact created by the imaginary civilization that it describes. And that civilization is based on Venice, which is a city I spent many years studying. But this is a kind of fairground mirror version of Venice. When I started writing this book, I was researching for a PhD. And I thought of this book as the book that my PhD was dreaming when it was asleep. So that gives you a sense of how it relates to the actual city of Venice. So it's an artifact created by the civilization it depicts, but it's not just any old artifact. It's kind of a sacred artifact which has an interpretive framework around it. This is what you will see when you open the book. Before you get to the start of the written narrative, you will find 5 coats of arms, 1 for each of the 5 protagonists. Each of those protagonists has a kind of a base colour. This is the coat of arms for Gabriella, and her base colour is blue, but obviously you can see other colours on here, and those other colours represent the other characters. So what you're getting here is a kind of diagram of the relationship between Gabriella and the other characters. And in the other 4 shields, they're all different designs, but they all kind of also diagram the relationships between the 5 protagonists. This is what you see when you get to chapter 1. You can see there's another coat of arms here. There's a coat of arms at the beginning of every chapter. They're different from the coats of arms of the characters. but they have the same range of colours, and basically what this coat of arms is telling you, it's like an index of which characters appear in this chapter. You'll also see that the text is laid out in chapters and verses and in 2 columns in imitation of the Bible. And I thought this was an interesting experiment, not just visually and in terms of a set of associations about presenting this as a sacred text, but in terms of what it does to the rhythm of the prose. Because what it effectively does is insert a kind of division somewhere that exists between the sentence and the paragraph, and in some ways is analogous maybe to line breaks in poetry. So it completely changes the rhythm of how you read, and in some ways the effect is like reading something in between prose and poetry, and I thought that was a pretty interesting experiment. So this is the next layout. You can see here in a bit more detail how the division into columns and chapters and verses works. I also want to draw your attention here to the running head, and the running head is the phrases in the header at the top of the page. In most books, this is the book title, as indeed it is in the case on the left here. And on the right, in most books, you would probably get the chapter title or the section title. In this book, the running head on the right changes for every layout, and it's a kind of clue for how to interpret what's happening on this layout, or it picks out something that it thinks is particularly important from the text on the layout to draw your attention to, or it offers a comment or an allusion or a quotation that helps you make sense of or interpret what's going on. This is the next layout. I just wanted to show you this one because it has an illustration on. There's lots of layouts that also include illustrations. You'll also notice again here the running head at the top right. You can see that that's changed from the previous layout. And then skipping a few pages to the end of the chapter, and I just wanted to show you the end of the chapter because here we have a plate, which is to say it's one of a separate group of illustrations that are always at the end of chapters. They're not at the end of every chapter, but at the end of many of them. And we prepared these separately. We spent a lot of time working on these, or Dan did, and they often have quite complicated relationship to the text of the chapter they accompany, which I don't really have time to explain how that works with this example. You can also see there's a shield to tell you which character is appearing in this particular illustration. It's Kerr, the kind of dog man who's depicted here as a baby. You can also see where the next chapter starts. We have another shield, which is a different design with different colours to show you that there are different characters appearing in this chapter from the last one. And this is just a close-up of the plate, just so that you can see how much work Dan has put into this and how he's kind of laid textures on top of it. These textures are intended to mimic water damage, partly because Kerr is having a dream of drowning in this image, as is described or explained in the text of the chapter that this accompanies. So if you'd like to get a copy of this book, you can go to this URL, jonathanwalkerwriter.uk, where you'll find a link to buy print-on-demand paperback, which will cost you £9 plus postage and packaging, which I think is a pretty good price given that there's a lot of colour illustrations in the book. Thanks for your attention.